Dale. I grew up in a small town in Texas, close to Louisiana border, and I was, quarterback through junior high and into high school and varsity basketball my freshman year, and always in seminary and different clubs and kind of the straight A student. But I also was experiencing things that maybe I didn't know how to handle. I had thoughts and feelings and did things that I didn't really understand. And the only people around me that maybe would have been close to feeling the same things, I didn't agree with what they were doing either. And what I'd been told was very different than anything that I'd even remotely come close to wanting to be. And so I hid. And frankly, looking back, I'm not really, I'm glad that I hid. I don't think I could have handled it coming out in high school. But there were definitely those feelings and nights where I just felt like I was evil, like I should, if I couldn't stop my thoughts and feelings, that I should at least stop being. And I remember waking up one night, I'd taken a bunch of pills, and I woke up the next morning in my own vomit and cleaned everything up best I could and went to seminary the next morning. And I never told anyone about it because then I would have to explain why I'd done it, and I wasn't willing to accept that. I think it was when Hurricane Katrina and Rita hit that there were about 4 months in my senior year that we didn't have school because we were just working, getting everything cleaned up. And that's when I realized that the church did a lot of good, and maybe I could pay a penance by going on a mission. And so I went, and it was a good experience. Had a week to get ready. Got my mission call on a Monday, and the next Monday I was on a plane to Provo. And I remember sitting in the airport in Salt Lake, and there was this huge German Shepherd that came up, and he had a guy with him, holding him, and the dog was really excited. And the guy came out of the airport and gives the dog a big hug, and then he stood up and kissed the guy with the dog, and I thought, whoa, what? I realize it's probably pretty ignorant now, but it was just so vastly different from anything that I had ever been told about what being gay was like. And here I'm getting ready to go on a mission. So I went, served 2 years, came back, quickly realized that even though I'd served hard, I'd done everything right, that I was still in trouble. And so I ran to Utah thinking if I immersed myself in the culture, that I could find someone to date and live the dream, the Mormon dream. And I dated lots of girls in high school, dated girls when I got back, and came close to marrying one. And it was actually at that point that I realized I'm about to destroy at least 2 lives, if not more. And I ran again, and I ran to USU in Logan, and I was doing an internship there for 3 months in Peru. And that was the first time I'd been away from any of the expectations that are placed on us, and was kind of able to examine myself for what I felt I was. And at one point I realized that I'd never even been able to say what was going on in my head. And so I found this mirror, kind of rubbed some of the grunge off of it, and for the longest time just stared at myself and tried to figure out what it was I was seeing. And eventually it took a couple tries actually, but eventually I looked at myself and was like, dude, you're gay. And that was incredibly terrifying and incredibly huge burden off my shoulders at the same time. I didn't know what it meant or how I was going to react to that, but just being able to say that was a huge step. So when I got back, I started figuring things out, and I thought maybe if I was smart enough that I could understand what the right choice was. So I started doing the research, the psychological, behavioral, studying scripturally what was actually being said and different responses to that. Started therapy, anything I could do to better understand what it was I was going through. And it was all really educational and informative, and I'm glad I did it, but I'm probably still in a lot of ways just as lost now as I was then. I also at that time became really bitter against the church. I didn't understand a lot of the things that they were doing or why they had made me feel so alone for so long. Growing up in a small town like that, like I said, I didn't have any idea of what being gay actually meant. And there was so much pressure and guilt for something I didn't control that I got really bitter for a long time. And started, when I was in church, having panic attacks and just unable to breathe, just running out. So I stopped going for my own safety, eventually graduated, and at some point during all of this, one night I found myself looking down the barrel of my own gun, and it scared me so bad, and I thought, I can't do the I'm still Mormon and gay thing. Like, it's killing me, literally. And so I decided, all right, I need to start coming out and telling people, my parents specifically. And when I did tell my parents, I remember my mom saying, well, okay, so does this mean that you're not going to follow the church anymore? And I asked her, Mom, how long have you been married? 30 years. Can you imagine the last 30 years without Dad? No. And I hope I don't get in that position either. Like, it's not, maybe that's what I do, but it's not a simple decision of black and white, yes or no. Since that time, I've come a long way. Coming out was definitely a good decision, so I'm glad I didn't do it back then. But it was the right decision for me at that time. And I've never been happier. I still recognize the need for spiritual fulfillment of some sort. And I hope that whoever I end up with, at the very least, has a respect for the church. I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to go back because I don't feel, I was having panic attacks in church, and it's still rough. And so for right now, I've kind of had to shut that off until I'm ready to process that part of my life again. But I do recognize the need for spiritual fulfillment. And, maybe it is back with the church one day, maybe not, I don't know. But I think the biggest thing was learning that I wasn't alone, that there was this huge array of what it meant to be gay and how I could choose to live that. Started out with the blogging community, blogging as always, it seems to happen a lot. But so I started blogging and started connecting with people in Logan, and then they found friends, and then started getting in touch with organizations and seeing how different people were reacting to a situation that for years I thought I was the only one. And again, I thought, looking back, that seems really ignorant, but it probably was, that I was it, and I was evil for doing it or feeling it, and that I could never tell anyone, that I would take it to my grave before letting this burden go. And then to find out that I'm not the only one, and seeing that there are people who did understand, who would listen and take the time to get to know me for me without the constant filter for anything that came out of my mouth. I didn't have to filter myself. I could actually speak to them. It was the first time I'd connected with anyone on that level, to be honest. But yeah, I think that's where I'm at right now.